Well, hi there, and welcome to the Sovereign CEO podcast. We talk about location-independent income, moving to another country, or at least setting up an international backup plan, and do all these things with very little money. I have done several videos at my Sovereign CEO YouTube channel, and if you're listening to this podcast, you can go to alphamail20.com/links, and all the links to all my social media video sites, YouTube channels. I have several of them. They're all there. You can check those out. But I have done several videos at my YouTube channel on the excuses of, well, if I move out of the country, what about my family? Well, if I move out of my country, what about my kids? Well, if I move out of my country, what about this? What about this? What about that? Instead of talking about that today, since I've already discussed that at the YouTube channel, I'm going to discuss actually how to handle those things for those of you who are moving out of your country or made the decision to move out of your country or maybe spend several months abroad or internationalize your life. If you already made that decision or you're currently in the process of doing that, give you some examples from my life on how I've handled those things. Because there's one thing, it's one thing to talk about trying to convince people to do this shit, and it's another thing to provide content to you guys who are doing this stuff. And sometimes, in some of my content, I forget about the second group when you guys are actually more important. You guys actually doing this, internationalizing your life, doing the 5 flags, getting location-dependent income. You guys are my bros, my peeps. And so sometimes I forget about you guys. I'm yelling at the other percentage of the audience that says, but what about my dad? So I'm going to talk to you guys today and give you some examples of what I've done to manage my family life, friends, and even touch a little bit on dating, because dating is a topic I talk about in my other channel, Alpha Male 2.0. So I'm not going to go into detail about that here. If you want more information on that, you should follow my Alpha Male 2.0 content. That's at alphamail20.com. But anyway, I do want to address some of that stuff here because that is a lifestyle logistical issue that you will run into unless you are celibate. And hopefully you aren't. So let's talk about family first. And I will just give you the examples of what I have done. Obviously, everyone's family scenario is different. I have spoken with many guys about this. I can give you some examples of other people, of what I've heard other people doing and what I've seen other people do. I live here in Dubai, where 91% of the population of this city are from other countries. So I've talked to a lot of people about this topic. But I'll give you some examples of what I do. And so if you didn't know, my scenario is that I am 50 years old. I have 5 siblings. I have 2 parents who are still alive. They are old. They're in their 80s, but they're still alive. I have 2 grown children. My daughter is 24. My son is 30. And most of these people still live in the United States. So to be fair, my son does not live in the United States. Good for him. He lives in Mexico primarily. Spends a lot of time in Thailand and some other places, but he primarily lives in Mexico now. And my daughter actually wants to move out of the United States. That's something she is working on. So in the next few years, she will also be out of the United States. Good for her. And my 2 parents still live in the United States. Most of my siblings still live in the United States. And you may be wondering, well, how do I handle that if I move out of the country? Now, if you're only spending a few months abroad, a few months a year out of the country, this is much easier, and you probably don't need a lot of logistical advice on how to handle this stuff. Unless you have small children. How do you raise small children? I have talked about that in other videos and other podcasts. You should refer to those because that's a very complicated topic. So I'm not going to discuss that today. That's very complicated. I'm talking here about family members who are generally adults. And I'm also talking mostly to you guys who are really moving out of your countries for the vast majority of the year, like I have. I live in Dubai, travel abroad a lot. I have other alternate flags and homes in other countries, particularly Paraguay. And so I have to figure out logistics for those things. So first, let me give you my examples on how I deal with most of these things. I have made the loose objective to visit the United States twice a year. Now that I'm officially out of there and my wife is now over with me in Dubai, I don't need to go back to the United States other than for logistical reasons, or maybe occasionally business reasons. I put on live events back in the US, which I will be doing, by the way, in 2023. More information on that coming soon. But I have made the commitment about, assuming these things don't do it, to be in the United States approximately once every 6 months, at least for a brief visit. And a number of things. I'm a time management guy. I'm a time management consultant. So I do what's called batching. I batch my tasks. So if I'm in the United States for a week or two, and as a matter of fact, I was just there for about 4 or 5 days running one of these errands, I make a to-do list of things I need to do and of people I need to see. So when I was last in the United States for a few days, a few weeks ago, I made a quick to-do list of all the stuff I need to pick up. So that's the first thing is, there are some things that you might like or need that are only available in your home country you will not be able to get in your new country. So the beauty of Dubai is 99.9% of everything I need to purchase and just to live is here in Dubai. They have everything. Down to like the brand of razors that I prefer, they have them here in Dubai. They have everything here. Medication, vitamins, they have all that stuff here. That being said, there is a tiny handful of items specifically for my TRT. I'm on testosterone replacement therapy. I want to maximize my testosterone throughout the rest of my life. Even though I'm a 50-year-old man, I have the testosterone of an 18-year-old. It's very beneficial to me. I have a lot of energy. I make a lot of money with this energy, and it's great in my personal life. And so there are some aspects of the TRT regimen, the TRT protocols I take that are not available here in Dubai. Some are, most are, but some aren't. Some are only available back in the United States, or logistically easy to get in the United States, for example. So what I will do when I go back for these visits is I will have this stuff shipped to a mailbox, a PO box I still maintain in the United States. I use a UPS store. You can use whatever is equivalent in your home country. And I just maintain that forever. And that way I have a shipping address and a mailing address in the United States, so I have to rely on a human being or a family member or something like that. Although that's another option. A lot of guys I know will take a trusted family member, their dad, their brother, something like that, and they will designate that as their mailing address in the United States, and they just get the mail there, and they have the brother either ship it to them, or they go visit the brother, or dad, they pick it up from that person. That's a valid option. I don't do that because I really do not like relying on other human beings to fulfill critical functions like this, especially ones I am not paying, ones that are family members. I suppose I could pay someone in the United States, but I think that'd be a little overkill. So I have that. So what I will do is I will go pick up all the necessary things that I need. I will have them pre-shipped when I need to. And then I will make a list, as I said, of all the people I need to see. So whenever I go back to the Portland/Seattle area, which is where I grew up, I'm very glad to not be there anymore. And every time I go back there, I feel like I want to throw up, including the last time I was there, which was a few weeks ago. I hated every minute of being there. They had yet another forest fire and you couldn't breathe. Great. So anyway, when I go back there, I make a list of people I want to see. Now, usually on that list are my mom, my dad. They are currently divorced. They got divorced after 46 years. Long story. Follow my other content if you want the details on that. But they both live in that region. And then my daughter who lives in that area. I don't really give a shit. And this is just me. I don't have any close relationships with any of my siblings. I have, I have 2 sisters and 3 brothers. And almost all of them have significant others, brothers-in-law and sister-in-law. I don't really need to see these people. I don't have anything against these people, but I just don't have any overwhelming need to spend time with these people. If you had a really close brother or really close sister, then you would add them to that list. Fine. See whoever you need to see. It's fine. Or a close friend. That's fine. Let's talk about friends really quick. I am an introvert. I have friends, but I don't spend a lot of time with friends. I'm not a social person. I like to be in my office and I like to work and make money. That's what I like to do. In my personal life, I like to spend time with my wife, and I am non-monogamous. I like to spend time having sex with the other women in my life who I call FBs. If you're curious about that, follow my other content. So anyway, that's what I like to do. So friends is not a big priority to me, but you would treat them just like a family member in that scenario where you would just put them on the list and make sure you visit them. And so when I was last in Portland for just a few days, I literally did this. I flew in to Seattle. My dad lives in Olympia, Washington. So on the way down to Portland, I spent some time. Actually, the way back up, I should say this. On the way back up, my trip back from Portland to Seattle, I stopped and spent an entire morning with my dad. And then I went right to the airport. We had a great time. While I was in Portland, I spent time with my mom. Haven't seen my mom in quite a while. She actually drove out to my hotel, which was very nice of her. I tried to spend time with my daughter, but I couldn't. But I had just seen my daughter a few months prior. And possibly if my daughter gets her passport in time, she could come out here to Dubai for Christmas. We're working on that. And those people were more than enough for me to talk to and visit with. And even if I missed these people, I'm going to be back there in, late February. And so that's another thing you should do is I do this. I schedule my travel schedule out several months in advance. I'm actually scheduling out the entire year in advance. We're in the process of doing that now. So I'll know exactly when I go back to the United States. And again, if you have friends, you just add friends to this system. That's fine. Another thing you can do if you are older and or have a little more money is that you can fly your grown children or very close relatives. You can fly them to you That is also an option if you can afford it. If you can't afford it, then obviously you wouldn't do that. But if you have the financial wherewithal to fly your mom out to come see you and come hang out with you for a few weeks, you can do that. Your grown kids, however you want to do that. There are a lot of people in Dubai who definitely do that, who actually will fly family members out here. And there are a lot of people in Dubai who will go back to see family members for a few weeks. Perfectly fine. There's a lot of Indians and Pakistanis here, and they're really big on their families, very similar to Hispanic cultures, Latin cultures. And so it's not unusual for these guys to just leave and be gone for like 3 weeks when they go back to India, spending 3 weeks with your family. Spend 3 weeks with your family. Fucking shoot me in the head. No, thank you. But I'm very Western that way. If you're not Western, then do what you want to do. Also, you can maintain and should maintain contact with these people on a semi-regular basis. So when you live in the same country as your friends and family, and or women you're dating, those of you who are dating multiple women, it's not really necessary to make a lot of phone calls or Zoom calls because you can go see them whenever you want or they can see you whenever you want. Whereas if you're out of the country, it's a slightly higher priority to get people on the phone or have Zoom calls. And so I try, sometimes I fail, but I try to do that with my kids. I try to spend a lot more time with my kids on the phone or over WhatsApp or on Zoom or something like that, where I can communicate with my kids. And I try to make an effort to do that because I'm not going to see my kids nearly as often if I was physically there back in the United States. And I'm kind of used to this because my son has been out of the country for several years now. He moved out of the country before I did. It was easier for him because he didn't have the infrastructure that I have. He doesn't have any kids. He didn't have a wife. I have all those things. So there you go. So I was already sort of used to doing this with my kids. So you might want to think about doing that, is kind of just have this schedule in your head or written down of how often you contact people. Now, let's address dating really quick, because again, I have massive amounts of content on exactly how to do this over at my Alpha Male 2.0 content, but I'm just going to encapsulate some basics here. If you have a serious girlfriend or a wife and you want to leave the country, you're going to have to make a decision. Well, if she's your wife and she lives with you, I'm assuming she's coming with you. If you have a girlfriend who does not live with you, you're probably going to have to make a decision. Do you want to live a better life? Do you want to have a wonderful life in terms of your own life? Do you want your girlfriend running your life, or do you want you to run your life? And I have spoken with many of you who had to dump girlfriends to move out of their countries. Good for you. Excellent. I hope your girlfriend doesn't run your life. And there's too many of you, unfortunately, in the modern era where that's exactly the case. Your wife, your girlfriend runs your life. That's what we call a beta male. You don't want to do that. That's not the path to happiness at all. Now, what about women that you are dating? I have an Alpha 2.0 dating model where we have OLTRs, MLTRs, FBs. I'm not going to describe all that here. Go to my other channel for that detail. But in terms of women you are dating, well, Caleb, won't I just never see all these women ever again? Well, you may not, or you might. So whenever I go back to the US, I have some friends, quote unquote friends over there who I do see sexually. And again, to repeat, yes, I'm married. I have a non-monogamous marriage. My wife knows I do this. She's been on many of my videos. Okay, so I still have some friends back in the US who I see sporadically. The word is sporadically. And yes, there are some women I was dating in the US, or seeing in the US, I should say in my case, because I don't date other women. I just hook up with other women because I'm married, that I probably will never see again. And that's part of the sacrifice you make to live this kind of lifestyle and to protect yourself and to have a lifestyle of lower taxes, higher opportunity, more happiness, more mobility, more security, all these things. That's one of the prices you pay is, yeah, if you're dating multiple women or have, recurring women in your life, you might have to give some of them up when you leave the country, and that's okay. Of course, if you have a wife, live-in girlfriend, or serious girlfriend who is willing to move with you, certainly do that. And as those of you know, you follow my Alpha 2.0 content, when I first got serious with my wife, Pink Firefly, many, many years ago, we had something I call the OLTR talk. This is a talk you give a woman before you get very serious, where you give the woman all the negatives of the living with you or being with you long term. Because you want that conversation now before she becomes your girlfriend, not make her your girlfriend and marry her or move in with her and then have these explosions later. That's fucking stupid. That's what most men do. It's ridiculous. And one of the negatives I gave her about 5 things. One of the negatives I gave her was, this is many years ago, hey, just so you know, I'm moving out of the United States and I'm moving with or without you. So if that's not something you want to do, either we shouldn't date or you can date me, but within a few years, you'll never see me again because I'm leaving with or without you. And back then I said, I don't even know where I'm going because back then I wasn't sure. This is many years ago. I was thinking about maybe Argentina way back then, something like that, I forget. And fortunately, she said, okay, I'll come with you. All right. I'll do it. I'll make that sacrifice. And she did. So you can obviously do that. That's a very big topic on how you manage all that, manage those logistics. It was a logistical nightmare to move my wife here because she has lots of clothes and she has a dog, and it was kind of a fucking mess. But the reason I chose to settle down with a woman before I left the country is that I did not want to have the factor of, once I move to a new country, is it a good country to date, because I will eventually want to settle down with a woman later. In other words, Dubai, for example, is not the greatest place in the world to date. If you're a single guy looking for a girlfriend, Dubai is not that great. Now, if you're looking just to get laid, fine. That's different. But if you're looking for a long-term serious girlfriend or a wife type partner, Dubai is not one of the ideal countries. There are many other countries in the world much better for that. And I didn't want to factor in that woman factor as a factor for where I moved, because the reason I moved to the United States was for tax purposes and for income, not for woman stuff. So I wanted the woman side of my life to be very wrapped up and locked in before I made that transition. I did not want to make that transition and then once I was there in the new country, say, okay, now how do I find a wife? Now, if you're not like that, if you are moving more for lifestyle reasons or woman reasons, then great. You can go to all kinds of places, Southeast Asia, South America, where you could absolutely find a very wonderful wife or long-term girlfriend, and that'd be great if that's the reason why you're moving. And as I've talked about a lot in Sovereign CEO, you need to very clearly encapsulate the reasons why you're moving. And that will direct you in terms of what country or what region of the world you want to be in. This is why I moved to Dubai: taxes, business, finance, financial opportunity. That's Dubai. Oh, and travel hub. That's Dubai. If you want to go for lifestyle, great weather, beaches, hot babes, and settling down or something, Dubai may or may not be what you want. Maybe you want something like Colombia. Maybe you want something like Thailand, or there's many other options. Philippines, what have you. As usual with this stuff, you need to sit down and plan this out. Plan this out on paper, on a Word document or a spreadsheet. Plan out how you're going to handle your family, how you're going to handle your dating life, how are you going to handle your friends once you move out or internationalize your life? Make a plan and make sure it's a plan you can do. As you can see, what I just described to you is not very complicated. You can make this as simple or as complex as you want. I would keep it simple, but just plan this out. Don't use this as a sense of fear or dread or an excuse to not make these changes in your life. You can integrate all these things in your life with a little time and a little effort. And as always, the rewards are worth it. Trust me. The financial rewards that I have gained by moving out of the United States, the emotional rewards that I have gained by moving out of the United States, the rewards in my personal life, some of which I talk about over my other channel that get a little R-rated, that I have received by moving out of the United States are significant. Every aspect of my life has improved by leaving the collapsing West. And so these little logistical functions are a small price to pay for the overall benefits that I have received, and you will too. I will see you in the next podcast next week. Have fun. Bye.